Welcome back to Sunrise as we continue this morning. April the 7th would have marked the 143rd birthday of a woman who has been called the mother of black freedom in South Africa. Beauty of the Heart, the life and times of Charlotte Manya Maxeke captures the journey of a powerful and determined African girl's journey to get an education and free her people in the process. Zubeida Jaffer, award-winning journalist and author and writer in residence at the University of the Free State's Communication Science, joins us this morning to take us through this book. Good morning to you, Zubeida, and thanks very much for joining us.
Good morning, Penny. Wonderful to be here.
Great stuff. So let's talk about this book, Beauty of the Heart. You know, we've come to know Charlotte Maxeke, I guess, for this generation because a hospital is named after her. And those who are, deep in history, they know that there's a submarine also named after her. And she was there at the founding of the ANC. But who was Charlotte Maxeke? Because that's what this book tries to tell us.
She was essentially somebody that was very passionate about education. And I always say that she started the education train. She got onto that education train in earlier than that, but she graduated in 1901 in the US. And she came back, and not only came back to teach the herd boys of Ramagopa village, but she also helped to build a school and a college, which still exists, and became one of the foremost women leaders of her time. And she died in 1939, but by then she had made her mark. There was nobody else more sort of prominent than her.
Now, reading through the book, it weaves through, historic times. Like, I'm saying she would have been like 143. So it talks about before 1901, before we even, when missionaries were like teaching in schools, she already had gone overseas to study, and she was already straddling a world of, being an African who's dealing with her culture and heritage, and then living in America, and, interacting with white women. She was just a force in her own right. But when you look at like what she was doing, it's almost like depicting the modern challenges that we're facing as South Africa.
Yeah, it was quite extraordinary that she was part of a choir that went to sing for the Queen in Britain in 1892. And she was 21 years old, at the time. And yet she met with Emily Pankhurst, who was 40 then, and who was the leader of British women trying to fight for the vote.
The rights of white women
yes,
in the UK.
For the vote.
For the vote.
So that I found quite extraordinary, because how was it possible for this 21-year-old to interact with somebody who was at such a sort of pinnacle of activism in Britain? And then she goes to the US. It's all by chance. It's very much by chance. And the AME Church kind of adopts her, and she studies.
She's instrumental in bringing the AME Church to South Africa as well.
And then she's there, and she's a pupil or a learner of W.E.B. Du Bois, who was the front runner of Pan-Africanism.
Yes,
in the 20th century.
But even as early as that, she finds herself as a woman who is surrounded by, very influential and powerful men. She's probably always the only woman in that space.
Yes.
Even with the formation of the ANC, it's almost like she's there by chance because she has forced her way into all sorts of situations.
Yes, her husband is clearly invited, but she plonks herself down there as well. And there she is at the launch of the ANC. And I've yet to find one person in this country, from, university people to anybody, who can say to me they know that fact. And so why was that fact kept away from us?
Well, if you followed her life, like I came to know that because I had followed her life. But she was like, I'm here, and where are the other women? Yeah. Like literally, I can imagine how she was like, where are the other women, and can we find them?
Yeah.
I also have something to say. Yeah. And that was also not the first, organization that she went to, even with the church, because she was also straddling patriarchy within the church,
yes.
In her village,
Yeah.
In the education system. But when you put through this book, the way you wrote it, you go back to history and you bring current situations. Was there a specific reason why you looked at writing like that? Were you thinking about who you wanted to read this book specifically?
Well, I was amazed. I mean, I'm quite interested in history generally, but I was also not too familiar with some of the early history. You know, we know about, from school, we know, oh, diamonds were discovered in Kimberley.
Yeah.
But you don't know that people were actually completely, you know, prevented from getting any benefit from diamond mining. I mean, put into camps with barbed wire around it. You know, black people were denied. And instead, those resources were taken, and universities like University of Cape Town and Stellenbosch were built from those resources or sent to Britain, you know. Now, this sort of thing, and it was way back, you know, in the late 1800s. So usually we start our story. 1910 there was Union, and in 1912 there was the launch of the ANC. You know, the story of resistance
starts way before
resistance that. Or, you know, kind of efforts by also this particularly intellectual strata to stand up and stand for everybody. It's phenomenal, and we should know about these people. We should know about Saul Plaatje. We should know of all these Pixley Kaseme. We should know what happened then, because they were very young people who went out there and excelled. I mean, they were, you know, I mean, Charlotte getting a BSc degree in 1901, when most women in South Africa, when no other women,
we're not even allowed to get
and a very small handful of white women were allowed to study at UCT,
which was a
4 or
college
5.
at the time. Okay. Well, we're going to have to leave it at that. It's truly an exciting book, and I would encourage a lot of people to get a copy of it. Beauty of the Heart, The Life and Times of Charlotte Magne Maxeke, and of course, Zubeida Jaifa joining us for the conversation this morning, who is the author of the book. Well, the big question is, what is your contribution to the current challenges that our country is facing? And maybe this book can help you unlock your own potential and make your own history.